if you're struggling with these things yourself in your life, I'm here to say to you, good job just for getting up and doing it. Good job for pushing through those dark days. Good job just for, putting up with it, or even walking out on it and looking for a new job. Because when I decided to leave the call centre, I did, wanted to step up. I wanted to step up. So, good on you for toughing it out, for holding on. That's a big, important point. So, yeah, it didn't ruin my life. It showed me that I had the strength and resilience within to face the void. Hi, you're with Scott. It's Mental Health Monday. It's midnight. It's always midnight. It's actually 8 p.m. GMT. This is your right ear, and this is your left ear. That's our little YouTube channel there. You can see that on the screen, Mental Health Monday. That's us. What we're talking about today is a couple of bits and pieces. Got some bits and pieces. There's a couple of bits and pieces in the news that I wanted to pull up, but without going too heavily. We're not a news story show. What we're doing today is talking about stigma through the prism of see me and mental health discrimination. See me, see you. It's Scottish. That's my accent. They'll like that. It's definitely not racist because it's part of the UK. Before we get into that, if you are feeling down, if you're feeling depressed and you've come to Mental Health Monday and you want to talk to us, that's absolutely fine. We've got a chat window up there in the top. I'll move that around now so you can see it better. Chat window. Wee. But if you are coming here and you're thinking, why is he chuffing? Look, he just did a little laugh then. He did a little laugh. That's not appropriate, is it, having a laugh? We're not laughing about mental health really, but we are generally congenial and jovial, unless it's a really dark part of a topic. So I'm going to generally be like that. And if you're feeling like you need immediate support and I'm not hitting the right tone, this is the Samaritans in the UK. They're waiting for your call, 116 123. It's a free phone number where you can just talk about your problem. And in the USA, they've gone more direct with the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, 1-800-273-8255 if you're feeling really down and at crisis point there. We've got Ganji Cuts. We're a Ganji Kid channel. We're a Twitch affiliate. I'm Ganji Kid. This is the channel on Twitch. This is the channel on YouTube. So you can watch every stream that we do just uploaded there the next day. So it's like an archive, if you will. We're playing Green Hell at the moment, and I've been talking about Gabby Petito in her red hot van in the desert. If you don't want to watch hours and hours of me chuffing on and playing Green Hell, I will encourage you to alight on Ganji Cuts, where I have cut a new video of Green Hell, and that will be uploaded tonight and will appear tomorrow on Ganji Cut. This is just some news that's come up about mental health over the last couple of days that I looked at and thought there's a couple of interesting things that came up. This one, athletes are shifting the narrative around mental health at work in the Harvard Business Review. We've been talking about this in Mental Health Monday over the last few weeks, haven't we? In general, we've been talking about mental health of sports people in the public eye. We talked about Lewis Hamilton, Simone Biles. We did mention Naomi Osaka, and it's interesting that they've pinpointed that their athletes are shifting the narrative around mental health at work. It has seemed to be that through the struggles of athletes in high-level sport, conversations about mental health are more readily had for some reason. Yeah, so that was interesting, that one. And another one that I wanted to pick up on here, mental health targets not being met in Norfolk and Suffolk, report says. So Norfolk and Suffolk are two counties in the UK. They're not like the whole world. But young people needing mental health support are not being seen quick enough. And in one area, 20% of the under 18s needing urgent referrals were assessed within 5 days, the target being 95%. So only 20% were seen within 5 days. And if you're at an urgent referral stage and it's only 20%, that's only 1 in 5 people is getting the help they need within 5 days in a small bracket of age group in a part of the UK. But I think that ripples out and says more about what's going on in general in the UK and indeed in Western society about mental health and the support needed and what's there and what's not, isn't it? We keep raising that point at the start of every episode of Mental Health Monday. Overall, let's have a bit more money in the mental health kitty because people are suffering. It's a more modern phenomenon that people are suffering in more increasing complex ways based on social media, exposure to media. It's all the media, isn't it? It's all the bad media. No, not just that. We have more single parent families than ever before. Not that that's a terrible thing, but it can create other struggles. There's a lot of social reasons why mental health is becoming more of an issue and needs to be if what I'm trying to say is, if you don't sort it out when people are young, when they're in schools, and if you don't give them the support early enough, it can spiral out into a more wide social issue that includes crime and dysfunction and other forms of hardship. So that's a thing that we sort of wanted to say. I've said it, so good old me. The support is great in emergencies, but everything else is so hard to access. This is saying that they can't even get the emergency support. So I imagine, I think you're completely right there. If you can't even get to see someone in 5 days, if you're at crisis point, then I imagine the waiting list to see somebody when you're not is even worse. However, look, this is a good news story. Scottish government. Now, I don't live in Scotland. They're a devolved governance as part of the United Kingdom. I live in England, but I'm British. United Kingdom, it's all the same to me. As far as I'm concerned, I sort of do live in Scotland. Or at least Scotland sort of does live in the United Kingdom. So, tackling mental health and stigma and discrimination, CME awarded continued funding. The national programme to eliminate mental health stigma and discrimination has been awarded $5 million of Scottish Government funding for 5 years. Now, I don't know what they were given before. It says continued, so I don't know if this is a step up or a step down. Giving them the $5 million to invest in a new strategy that will allow them to carry on their important work as part of the wider national response to the mental health impact. And it's about tackling mental health stigma and discrimination. Tackling stigma is crucial to mental health improvement because of the barriers it prevents. I always do that. Every episode I can't read the thing. Reducing stigma creates the best conditions for positive mental well-being, enabling more people to access the support, care and treatment they need. You're going to say that because you're getting £5 million to do it. But I do see your point. There's always a worry in me that when your job is to, like this marketing, it's all involved in marketing. When your job is to sell an idea to the government so you can get the money, is it important that you do a really good website so the government people think you're doing a good job and you get the money? Or is it important that you get the money and follow through so the government people can see you're doing a good job? Do you know what I'm saying? We have a thing in Stratford called the Stratforward Business Improvement District, where someone sold all the town's businesses the idea that they would improve their business. It was like a snake oil guy come to town. Monorail. And it's like, if you'll give me 2% of your money, then I'll use that money to bring loads of people into the town and they'll all come and shop at your shop. And they didn't clock on the people that it's a con, because if you will give me 2% of your money, then I'll make a really good website to make it look like I'm doing something with your money. And in the con, I've got the money, so I don't need the people to come into the town. That's by the by. I've got 2% of your money. And if it comes to it, why would you pay them if they're not bringing the people into the town? Well, they're really good at marketing, so they can convince you that they're going to do something good. Like beforehand, they convinced you. There were no people coming into the town. They said, give me the money and I will bring the people into the town. They're good at convincing you to give them money. That's the marketing bit. So when it comes around again, but they're not doing their job. Well, I've got a flashy website that can show you that I'm doing my job. Give me your money. They're not really trying to sell to the customers and the people. They're trying to really to sell to the people who give them the money. That makes sense, doesn't it? If someone's going to give you money, sell to them and make the ideas appear to be what they want to hear. So it worries me sometimes that if you're going to give £5 million to somebody who is involved in marketing, well, website creation, marketing. I know they're deep down a charity that works about mental health, but a lot of this end stigma and the stuff that's happening is media. I mean, I work in media, don't I? I understand the concepts at play here. There's actual things going on, like volunteer programs and people really on the ground being helped. But then there's this bigger concept of marketing the concepts, of marketing the ideas. The website in itself is a marketing creation, isn't it? And you've got other companies involved and it's doing good work. I'm not saying it's necessarily terribly a bad thing, but I'm saying what I always worry about is when taking big amounts of money? Are we convincing the Scottish government we're doing a good job, or are we actually doing a good job and they're legit in giving us the money? So I think this could be the second one. I think it could be the second one, and that's why we're using it as a jump off point. But I think it's fair for me to try and be balanced in some of the things that go through my head. So what I thought was really interesting as well is, why are we approaching this at stigma level? It's worrisome to me, because if we're only approaching the stigma, that's a marketing exercise that you can't quantify. You can't say, if I'm in another aspect, if I'm dealing with the amount of children under the age of 18 in Norfolk and Suffolk that aren't, there's 21 in 5 is missing that 5-day window to get support. So I could say, with my £5 million, I'm going to cut that number from 1 in 5 to 1 out of 5 is missing. I'm going to provide the support to make sure that young people get support when they're at crisis point, and that's percentage that we're measuring, because it's based on the number of people that have called up and said, I'm at crisis point, and then they've checked on the system, did you get any help after 5 days? No. Yes. Right? That's measurable. We can spend the money and we can do something, and I can measure it and I can show you that we've done it. But with tackling stigma, it's not that. We can spend the money on a Feels FM marketing campaign, we can put up all the posters, and tackling the stigma involves creating a social media conversation. So that's good for a social media marketing company, whether they're involved in mental health or not. I imagine that See Me are going to pay a marketing company, aren't they? So it's good for a marketing company, but is it going to? How do we quantify the good it has done? How do we, and I'm in the same boat here. I'm making media about mental health, aren't I? So I don't go out and get a homeless person to make them sleep in my home, but I hope I'm doing some good in the world. So it's one of those, isn't it? That's why I both think it's really good, and I'm really worried that we might be filtering money into slightly the wrong place. But I also then think, so I'm not having a debate here in my own head, aren't I? I also think that the principle is good, that the first point of call that we didn't have maybe 20 years ago with mental health is that it's okay to talk about it, that it's important to talk about it. So much mental health washing going on, the whole talk to someone thing isn't going to help someone through, and we talked about this before, is that's why I started right at the start with Samaritans and Lifeline. They are talking to people things, but they're more direct crisis things, and why I think that these young people should be getting some actual mental health support, and that us talking about things in the public sphere. I did I'm really thankful video where I said I'm really thankful, because there's a difference between me putting out a tweet on black bordered Instagram thing that says mental health is really serious, it's time to talk, and not actually that's it, not actually here's a link to something else. For me not to say the brutal truths of my own mental health struggles, which I have done in videos you can go and watch, or for me to not be here to listen to your ideas and conversation. What we're doing is actually talking about it. We're having a two-way. It's so different from just saying it's a problem, let's highlight it. But I also, swinging the other way, I also really do think that the problem of stigma is something that without, let's look at a different aspect of life, sexuality. Let's look at sexuality, because that's really appropriate. But how do I explain this? A few years ago, 10, 20 years ago, there was a huge stigma surrounding, say, homosexuality or alternative sexuality, I would say. And like the world I grew up in, even, there was a conversation being had. There were older generations that still had that stigma, that still believed in those stigmas, and there were younger generations that absolutely was throwing them off with free abandon. So we're in a different place now, and doesn't it feel a lot better that it isn't that, or I say there isn't, maybe there hasn't for a while, it hasn't been acceptable in the main and the other side of that conversation, the group of people that say we don't think there's a stigma and we won't have it and we're not putting up with it, that has risen to become more not just visible, but in my opinion, the sensible majority. And if you are feeling invisible or you're feeling stigmatized, you can clearly see that, you know, you don't there's a song called Small Town Boy about, you know, a lad who has to run away from his old-fashioned parents, an old-fashioned small town, to somewhere more accepting. And nowadays I don't think you have to run as far. I think it's just a lot more available. So hopefully that's a good thing. And you can see the same similarity, can't you, with mental health? If mental health is something that we can't talk about, or we choose not to talk about because we think people will think badly of us, well, you know, what is a stigma? We should look at that. I should have put that as a topic. What is a stigma? What does it mean? You know, discrimination. I think it seems too obvious for me to do a full topic on it, but, you know, in general, it's people that think badly of something, of you, of something, of a concept, that they might not be correct in thinking badly. You know, they've attributed some negative characteristics to something that maybe is a little less. Maybe they've hung those ideas on the hooks, but they don't belong there. You know. So is stigma worth 5 million? Is stigma the nail that you hit first? Is that where we attack mental health? Stigma. I think in ways you attack everything, don't you? So as long as you're throwing money at the other problems, yeah. And I think you get the ball rolling, that it's important. I suppose politically, because this is money from the government, remember, so they've got different thought processes. They've got, like, if we give them this money, do we win more votes? Thought processes going on. And I think they actually do understand something that maybe I missed, a little trick. If you can't get people in general to understand the realities of the nature of mental health, to shake off those stigma, it's going to be very difficult to gain public support for investing in that support. Maybe politically, and I haven't thought deeply about this, you know, I'm not given the budget, but maybe I'm not given the pressures on the budget, I should say. I'm not given the political, you know, stats and printouts that say what the voters are thinking. But maybe, you know, there's a selfish attitude, isn't there, in certain right-wing politics of not wanting society. You know, I pay my taxes, so I don't pay my taxes so that the poor people can have a house. I don't pay my taxes so that poor people can have a hospital bed. I pay my taxes so children can go to school and the police can police the streets and we can have street lights. But I don't pay my taxes for poor people to live off my earnings and my work. There's that attitude. It's quite a selfish attitude because it misses certain tricks, you know. Like, think of disabled people. Like, I don't pay my taxes so that disabled people can have lifts and wheelchairs. Well, who's going to pay for them then? Because they're not going to be like, it's going to be unless you give them access points to buildings and, you know, lifts and wheelchairs, they're not even going to be able to get into the jobs to support themselves, even though they're quite capable of doing the jobs. But you open up that access to society for them, you use a bit of your tax money to support these people, and they provide back, they get the, you know, they show that they're productive members of society, and lo and behold, you know, you get more back from your society in general, from being more open and inclusive. So if you do help out a poor person who needs a house, then it might be that they don't end up just like destitute on the street. Maybe they end up part of the society and, you know, part of the system and contributing to that wider, the bigger game, the society thing. I don't know. A stigma is a mark of disgrace associated with a particular circumstance, quality or person. There you go. That's nice and straightforward. We didn't have to have a whole section on it. Good. It's a mark of disgrace. So that's if people think mental health is disgraceful, then they're not going to support the alleviation of the suffering of the mentally ill. So that is a good start point, I think. I think if you're coming to this from a political point of view, like the Scottish Government obviously are, and they're saying, I'd like to put £10 million into mental health recovery programmes. But the problem is that those recovery programmes include alcoholism, drug dependency, homelessness. They include programmes to deal with teenage runaways, or, you know, and you list these people, and until you provide a mental health support structure, these people inevitably bump into the other institutions in our society, the NHS, the police. You know, they introduce an element of conflict at times with these institutions because of their mental health deterioration, it can cause erratic behaviours. And then you've got people saying, well, are you going to give £10 million to the drunks and the junkies and the mad people? I want you to give that £10 million to the schools and to the things. So does this if you follow the stigma, then you're not going to give them the money to do the support. And it's a silly thing, because of course if you use the money to do the support, then it helps the whole wider society. The hospital can get on with doing the things they need to do, because they're not having to support these people who have become crisis point cases through the lack of support all the way through. So it makes sense to devote some time to defeating the stigma, so we can then have a general consensus that yes, we all agree that this is not something to be associated with disgrace, that we can all agree that there but for the grace of God go I, and we could all do something to help. It's better for all of us. So then maybe it's a good idea that I've told you why I think it might be a bad idea. I've told you why it might be a good idea. I think it's up to you to decide whether giving £5 million to end discrimination of mental health is more important than giving £5 million to directly help the people who are at mental health crisis point right now. I think in balance, I'd like to see some money given to both. Fair enough. Who decides the stigma? Is it organic? There are two aspects, or there are multiple aspects of social perceptions of groups, and it's complex, but it's the same sort of complex mix, like the same sort of blend of soup as who decides what a man should be, or what's a good example of a hero. It's social ideas that are shared amongst people and agreed upon or not agreed upon. And so some of these ideas are born of old ideas, like traditional ideas. For example, we used to have a mental hospital called Bedlam, didn't we? And the phrase Bedlam is used to refer to people who are in a high state of mental health confusion. Bedlam, it's total bedlam in there, because that was like an actual mental health hospital. And back in those days, they were doing they didn't consider the mental health support in the same way as we do today. They would literally lock them up and sort of this is way, but I'm talking like Victorian times and stuff like that, where you were considered to be either demonically possessed or of leave of your senses. And before they understood biology and physiology, they would do some quite horrible things to these people in the name of curing them. I don't know. So there's that. Then there's the aspect of mental health, the disorder, where if you're suffering from mental health disorder, then it plays out in such a way that you yourself seem disordered, maybe are not. Like, what I'm trying to say is, you've got a certain level of functioning in society that everyone sort of ticks along at, this sort of mean normal mode. You get up at a certain time, you go to work, you talk to people a certain way, and a sort of normal level that most people get on and do. You can be off that chart if you want. You can be eccentric. I'm like that. I'm eccentric, I would say. Eccentric, that's a nice way of saying, a bit off the chart. You can have exceptions to the norms, of course, but mental health disorder seems to play out in such a way that the norms that are offended, the social norms that are, like, if you do something different, if it's a social norm, let's say for example wearing shoes, if it's socially normal to wear shoes, it doesn't matter if you don't wear shoes, does it? If I want to walk on the beach with no shoes, that's normal there. But if I do it in the restaurant, it's not considered normal. Their floor might be quite clean, it might have glass on it, so maybe it's not sensible, it's not normal. So if I walked into the restaurant in a full suit and no shoes, then someone's going to say, oh, hello, what's going on here? It's just not the social norm. So by contravening the social norm, I draw attention to myself. Now, it might be that I've got a lovely pedicured, beautiful feet. It would be more normal to see a lady's feet, wouldn't it, in lady shoes? So maybe if a lady did it, it'd be more normal. Like, there are situations where it might not, where breaking the norm might not cause an outrage or discomfort or disturbance. But if you're suffering from a mental health degradation, if you're starting to become more reclusive, if you're starting to become more angry or wound up or confused or upset, then those are norms that people don't want to. They're like icky, hard to deal with, sometimes scary norms. And if you're scared of something, or you're finding it, I've been through this so many times, because I went to a hairdressing college as a young man, and quite a lot of the people in my class did not adhere to the same norms and values as I did. I liked football and I liked drinking beers, and they thought that was like loutish and yobbish, and they were more interested in one of the Kardashians or something, or whatever, you know. There was like a difference in, but when I went and spoke to my roofing mates, because I used to be a roofer and then I went to hairdressing college, so when I went to speak to my roofing mates, the hairdressing stuff was not normal to them. They'd be like, oh, what are you on about? Oh, hairspray and Kardashians. Oh, that's not normal. What about the beer and the pints and the being a lad? Like, these concepts are just born of group think, aren't they? They're just born of in groups and out groups. So the same with the mental health. It might not be that it's as bad as it seems to the way the group then reflect it back, but it becomes a stigma, because like, oh, that's different, oh, I don't, what's he doing in here without his shoes on, why haven't you combed your hair? And it can be already, it's like I don't like this, it's something that I want to defend against or ostracize. It's not something that you want to open up your arms and embrace and say, how can we help? Like, it doesn't present itself to the norm, and that's okay. That's okay, that's okay. But then those that are trained in it, those that, look a little deeper, they see that initial, it's a bit, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I actually think this is kind of true. It's a bit like a stray dog might be aggressive or confused, and, most people are not going to see the wonderful, loyal life companion that, with a little bit of care and developing trust and a little bit of consistency and care, could that animal can be. We're all animals, aren't we? We're all animals in a way. We're all just normal people, and if so, any of us could end up down this road of being stigmatized for our mental health. Any of us could. And why does it happen? Is it organic? Yeah, kind of. It's kind of organic. It's social. So I hope that what we do today here does something towards changing that, because it's all the way along our society changes by people standing up and saying, hang on, no, I don't agree with that. I don't think that's right. For a lot of the time, it's I'm not casting any aspersions over people. We all have the opportunity to, and we all have gone along with things sometimes when we should have stood up. So, we're all heroes and we're all complicit. I want to say complicit. We're not bad people, but these, we're not the Nazis marching people to the death camps because it was just our job. We're not doing that, but we're also not, rebelling and shooting Hitler. Are we? Like, we're sort of going along with society because that's how it is, and there are people that need help, and sometimes you see it in the street and you're prepared to say, hang on, no, stop doing that, this isn't acceptable. Like, someone's bullying someone in the street, other examples, you're prepared to say that, or maybe you're scared to because you might end up attacked. I don't know. Like, that's the world we're living in. And so what we're doing here today is part of the hang on. And so we're part of the media that's trying to fight the discrimination. So it's interesting that we've nailed that, isn't it? That's what today's episode's about. And you know what? It's going really well in a way, because although I'm not ploughing through all this stuff, and there's a lot of stuff which we're going to look at, we're doing what I hoped we would do, which is understanding mental health stigma and discrimination. That's what we're trying to do. We're talking about the subject and we're trying to understand what it is, because that's today's topic. Discrimination is placing barriers to achieving what everyone else is allowed to. Well, that's a different way of putting it. Placing barriers to achieving what everyone else is allowed to. So if someone's got a mental health problem, if someone's suffered with depression, or like we've been through so many of the different concepts, haven't we? Schizophrenia, bulimia, anything from schizophrenia to bulimia. I like the way it rhymes. We fixed everything. Thank you for your tippies. Thank you for your tippies. We fixed everything. Yeah, no, we've got a long... I'm going to have... well, how should I say this? We are going to be talking about mental health on stream for a good long while yet. I'm not going to guarantee how many years I have in me. That's not guaranteed by anyone, is it? That's up to the big fella upstairs, the big lady, the big person of non-specific gender upstairs. And there's nobody upstairs in my house. I mean, God. That's up to God how long I've got. But until God's decided for me, I'm going to endeavour to maintain this consistency because I like it. We're doing it. It's good. It's connected us, hasn't it? I get my tippies, the big kitty upstairs. We've got I'll turn that back on for you. Look, we've got the cat bed there, the dog bed. We're just not being graced by the presence of any animals yet today. Oh, there's my hand. But they know it's there if they should choose to join us, the chuffers. They know it's there. So yeah, it's placing barriers to achieving what everyone else is allowed to do. So, like, I kind of get that. Put treats in there. Okay, we'll try that next time. I'm not moving. No, we're not moving now. But we'll try that for the next stream. We'll furnish. Sounds like bribery. I mean, it's already a nice bed. What more do you want? Discrimination is placing barriers. So I do get this. Like, should they be allowed to have kids? Allowed to have kids? Can you even hear what I'm saying? Should they be allowed to have kids? What a terrible thing to say that sounds like, doesn't it? But I could imagine that. What I've been doing in my head is I'm imagining gossiping people that are sort of... It might be a bad mental health move here, but I'm like creating the characters in my head that gossip and point fingers and say, oh, should they be allowed to have kids? Like, oh, so-and-so at number 42. Oh, they've been talking to the mental health doctor. Oh, I hope they don't do anything. Should they be able to, things like that worries, the concerns, the stigmas. They're born of stigma sometimes, aren't they? So that's a really good first sentence there. Putting barriers to achieve what everyone else is allowed to. So if you're suffering with a mental health condition, yeah, it might put some barriers in place for you. Because while you're suffering the lows and the throws, yeah, you're going to have some days where you're probably not going to want to go and look after the. Probably not going to want to go and drive a cruise liner or something, something that involves heavy responsibility. But then there are other times once you've got through these things that you might be stronger because of it. You might have worked through some dark times that have helped you to understand other people, and maybe you're more valuable to society in a lead role in a counselling group, or not even wider than that. In the headmaster of a school who can understand the depression that young people face. Maybe you're a teacher that's gone through something that other teachers haven't. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't be a teacher anymore. It means that you're even more. The rich tapestry of your life has even more threads. So maybe you'd make a wonderful, X, Y, Z. Put whatever it is you want into that sentence, and whether it be playing tennis, a soccer, and whoever, or doing the gymnastics. Just because you've had a mental health doesn't mean you can't. That's the general. Yeah. That's the general point there. I like that. Denying someone an opportunity to flourish in life, friendships, relationships, career, and their place within their own community. Right, so that's important as well. I live in a small town, right? And so it's one of those sort of towns where everyone kind of knows everyone. And if you're going to go and do something a little bit eccentric, if you're going to go and do something a little bit strange, then people are going to get to know you and they're going to talk about it. They're going to know. So I can think of two characters off the top of my head. One is the singing man. Now, I don't know if the singing man still goes about, but I used to have a hairdressing shop in the centre of town. I used to see the people of the town quite regularly. And this singing man, he would walk the streets and he would sing, but he wouldn't just sing like a normal, like you might, don't worry, be happy, or whatever, your favourite song as you're walking. It's not that. He was like loud, and they seemed to be things that were like made up off the top of his head. So it'd be like, the birds are singing and the sky is blue, another day I sing to you. And it's like an eccentric too far over the edge to be like considered normal. I don't know what his mental health situation was, but the general consensus of behaviour around Singing Man, and bear in mind, I used to run this hairdressing shop, so I wouldn't be out there sort of changing the general consensus of behaviour. Maybe these days, if I saw these things happening, maybe I would. But the general consensus would be people would laugh. They might point their talk amongst themselves. They'd avoid the fella. Maybe he'd go into shops and people would talk to him like a normal person while he bought a cake or two or whatever. But then when he'd gone, they'd be like, "Oh, it's that Singing Man from the Singing Man." So he was like, MentalHealth say it's having a blast. He seemed to be having quite a fun time, yeah. But so socially, we denied, and I also, if I don't know what would have happened if Singing Man had come into my hairdressing salon and asked for a haircut. Although I can tell a different story, and I will in just a second. But we denied Singing Man their place within our community, I believe, because people wouldn't really allow him to flourish and have friendships. So I imagine if one of your friends had gone and had a chat with Singing Man, then the other friends would be like, "Oh, what you doing? Oh, chatting to Singing Man. Oh, you chuffer, you're a chuffer as well." So it was like ostracized. It was like Singing Man is different and weird. We don't like that. And then there was I can think of another kind of couple of examples of people like that on the fringes of the community that were clearly identifiably different, that therefore their difference wouldn't allow people to even give them the first time of day. One was, and this is 20 years before now, so transsexual gender politics wasn't as modern and free, but there was a fella, I'm just going to say it like this because I don't care, I'm not a bad person, I don't care, I'm not going to get cancelled for it. There was a fella in a dress, right? But really, he was an early, he was transgender, but society itself hadn't got to the point of we are where we are now, right? And back then he was a fella, the town knew him as that fella in the dress. So if he were to come into the pub or whatever, there wasn't that opportunity for that fella in the dress to flourish in life, have friendships and relationships. I don't even know if that counts. I don't even know if they had mental health difficulties, but they certainly appeared to do so through their interactions and through the difficulties they had in society. So that's discrimination, causing that person the inability to have friendships, relationships, a career, and their place within the community. So I get that. I see that. Talking to my hairdressing shop, I know that I was okay with this because there was there was a fella who suffered with bipolar, and I did his hair and his friend's hair, and not just, in fact, now I'm thinking about it, I could probably list 4 or 5 clients who had actual, mental health difficulties in the same way as I've suffered with depression, as you've suffered with depression, who weren't like off the wall, eclectic, what was I saying? Eccentric types, that okay, but there was a couple of times where people were demonstrably don't want to say suffering, because they didn't say they were suffering with mental health delusion. Demonstrably delusional is a better way of putting it. And I wasn't a mental health professional, so I wasn't there to sort of fix their delusions, make sure they didn't pick up the scissors. That's what I was there to do, make sure they didn't get their hands on the scissors. See, I'm doing a joke about it, mental health stigma. See, doing a joke about it. That's that's how things get stigmatized. Bad me. But I was there to treat them like a normal human being, to try and keep the situation as normal as possible, and to do their nice hair for them, and to maybe at the end say quietly, and I did, I'm not sure the things you've said in some of these things, I don't, but hopefully you can get some, but they were already well aware of their mental health struggles, I guess. So we had that conversation at the end of the haircut in a quiet way, where I just said, like, some of the things you said were a bit, I don't agree. Like, I can't even explain what they are because they're delusions, but that I just wanted to make it clear that, I'm not being mean to you and I don't want you to feel bad, but I really don't believe those things that you said were true for me. I think most people would not. Therefore, is it worth checking on your, because I know you've got this problem with the bipolar. Leave that with you, sort of thing, as a hairdresser. Right, we also know 37% of people in Scotland have witnessed someone experiencing stigma or discrimination because of a mental health problem. Yeah. I mean, I want to reference Limmy. I should have got Limmy on to talk about this. We're not at that stage yet, are we? We're not at that phase yet in our streaming career. But one day. So one day Stuart Lee will be sat in this room. That's my big ambition. One day Stuart Lee will be sat in this room. And one day we can talk to Limmy about mental health in Scotland and what it's like to be stigmatised for it and what people do in order to stigmatise people. But 94% would be willing to speak to a healthcare professional. 80% would speak to a family member. 70% have witnessed people being treated differently or unfairly. 60% of people who experience a mental health problem suggest it spoiled their life. Chuffing hell. I mean, I can dig that concept. And you got to remember, like, because this is Mental Health Monday, we're talking directly. So you got to remember that your life is not done. No, nor should you be thinking about it being so. There's a long way to go. Even if it feels tough sometimes, it's better to tough that out and get through it. That's the aim. That's the gist. Because who knows? You know, you've got to accept that even though you might think there's bad things, this could go wrong, I don't like this, that. If you're prepared to entertain those possibilities, you've got to also entertain the possibility, even if it's a thin sliver at the moment in the way you think, even if it's a thin sliver, you've got to accept that there is a 1%, 2%, 5% chance that things could get better. And who knows, you know, how better they could get. So, I don't consider my life to be spoiled by mental health difficulty, although I do also absolutely agree that it did. It wasn't just that one thing, but a conglomeration of factors. I could have been, let's say it's a different way. I could have been working on the stock market in London. Like, I could have got a degree in economics and gone and worked in Deutsche Bank or Barings Bank or something like that. You know, I could have been really quite wealthy. That would have spoiled my life. I'm glad this has happened the way it has. I don't know. Did mental health issues like spoil scupper my chances at success? Yes, for a degree and a certain direction, but also, would I not be sitting here now? You can't, who knows where we're going to go. So I think that's a hard statistic, because it suggests that your life is done and that your judgment has been cast. And if you're sitting in a really dire situation, I mean, I've been in that. I'll tell you where I've been. I've been in a room on my hands and knees, having cried all day, having cried all night, having thought to myself, look, what's the point in going to bed just to wake up to do that again? And I know that is like one step away from that suicidal thought, isn't it? Of what's the point in going to bed? What's the point in waking up? What's the point? So what I said to myself was, like, I've had enough of that now then. This must be pretty low, because we're like a step away from thinking suicide. I mean, at that point I was probably thinking suicide as well. How would I do it? What would I do? And I thought, like, I've got an alternative, which is this is the lowest point, and I've managed to. I actually remember saying this to myself. Look, I've got through. I'm on my hands and knees, and I've been doing all the crying, but I've been alive. I'm here. And 5 minutes of these thoughts, for the last 5 minutes, I've been alive. I've not been dead. I've not kicked. So I've got through that. So if I could do 5 minutes, I could do 10 minutes. And I'm probably going to sit awake all night. And I probably did that night. I probably didn't sleep very well. I probably went to 4 a.m, 5 a.m, birds coming up, eventually, sort of passed out in my own stupor. But, I remember saying to myself, I'm not going to, this was quite early on. I say early on in my life. I was probably in my 20s, but I remember saying to myself that if that's the hardest thing, and getting through means just, even if it's 6 months of growing a beard, even if I don't go out the house for 6 months and I just exist and I just eat and I just I wait for my doctor's appointment and I tell them how I'm feeling and whatever, I'm prepared to fight that much. And looking at that situation after 6 months of growing a beard and playing The Sims and not sleeping in the day and not being able to sleep at night and not being able to stay awake in the day and all that business. After 6 months of that, I was having the full beard. It was a struggle, mentally to not slip completely off down the slope. But I knew that I knew it was worth fighting, because things can get better. Because even having a beard and like just being on the sofa was a bit better than being on my hands and knees and crying. And then I looked at that situation. I said, like, this has got to get better. It's not going to get better on its own. I'm going to have to start doing these things to make it better. And although I've got this feeling inside me that I've been like Castaway is a good example. Although I've got this feeling inside me that I've been wrecked on the rocks, that my plane has been destroyed and I'm floating in the sea. Even though I've got that, I'm going to have to take that out there, and I'm going to have to go and sit at the chuffing supermarket. It wasn't the supermarket, was it? It was Sitel then. It was I shouldn't name the business, but it was the call centre. I had to go to the call centre, and I got the job at the call centre by having the shave, putting on the clothes, feeling like shit. I'm going to swear for this one, I don't care. Feeling like shit, and just going to the interview. And instead of saying to them, I'm here because otherwise I'm going to kill myself. I thought, that's not a good thing to say at the job, is it? Not at the job interview. I mean, I said that about this streaming when I first started, and I kind of meant it then as well. But not just today's episode, I meant streaming in general, but like I went there and I was just like, it's better than being at home and having a beard, isn't it? So I worked in a call centre and I hated it. Let's not pretend that it made me feel better and it was good, and now I've not got mental health problems, now I'm all right. I hated it, but talking to people in the day wasn't so bad. Some of them, being on my own at break time, smoking my little naughty things that you're not supposed to smoke, cigarettes, we'll call them cigarettes, smoking my cigarettes, being on the phone. Good afternoon, you're through to British Gas, this is Scott, how can I help? Yeah, well, actually, it's free installation. Have you got a quoting reference? On the form in front of you, you should have a quoting reference. No, that's the telephone number. No, that's the telephone number that you've used to call us on. Just underneath that, it should say quoting reference. No, that's underneath that, it should say quoting reference. Yeah, fine, thank you very much. I'll type that in, and then I'll be like, right, I know who you are now, what area you're in. And I'll be like, yeah, you've got free installation from British Gas. And they'll be like, free? And I'll be like, yeah, it's a government initiative to sort you out because of this is off script now. I'm off script, but this is this is a government initiative to help you because of green issues, wasn't it? It was green. The government was giving out free insulation, and the people, right? The people on the other end of the phone would be like, I don't know about this. I mean, half of them have called you because they've got the flyer. The other half you've called, but they'd be like, I don't know about this. There's got to be a catch. And I'd be like, no, it's through this government initiative. They're giving out free insulation. And 50% of people just hung up on us. like it was some blag. They instead would rather pay for their insulation themselves. But that was my job. That was my job for about 6 months. I ended up, jaffing that in. I ended up walking. But having the confidence to walk out on a job was an improvement, wasn't it? That was an improvement. And that was one of the things that bumped me into hairdressing as well, because roofing, hairdressing learning. Yeah. Roofing was better than that, I think. But even again, then, I didn't get up in the morning and say, I want to be the world's greatest roofer, let's go. But I didn't want to stay on my hands and knees and cry. So if it had to be done, we have to do some stuff. And it's part of that dragging yourself out of the sea by your hair. You can't drag yourself out of the sea by your hair. But it was one of the, I'm one of these people that seems quite smart because I can say smart things. But then when it really comes down to it, I would not win the Million on a Millionaire because I can't remember exactly. Who dragged himself out of the sea by their hair? Was it Hercules? A real powerful player in Greek mythology. Apparently pulled himself out of the sea by their own hair. And you can't, it's against physics. But in metaphorical terms, that's what you have to do with depression, because lots of people will try and help you, but in yourself, like right inside you, you're in the sea drowning in your own mind. You have to make the decision to, okay, I'll take the tablets, I'll give myself a break, okay, I'll talk to the doctor. When I say take the tablets, I don't mean like, do yourself in. I mean take the doctor prescribed, help you out over the hump sort of tablets, find the combination that works for you maybe. I'll talk to the mental health support. I'll just at least write down how I'm feeling and let my family know or whatever, those sort of things. It's you, isn't it, doing it? You have to drag yourself out of the sea by your hair. You have to have the will that says, hold on. If you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they're gone. If you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they're gone, and so hold on when there's nothing in you except the will, which says to them, hold on. And what that means, is that the heart, like in order here, your heart is broken, isn't it? It's your heart that's broken. Your nerves are fraught. Your nerves are frayed. The sinew, like, you got all this like power, the power man pulling himself out there, the power, the Anthony Joshua. This is what Anthony Joshua didn't have. This is what Anthony Joshua didn't do. This is the lesson that you need. The strength. The sinew is not the big muscle part. It's not the big, down the gym. I've been with the world's strongest men in the gym, Eddie Hall. I've been with him in the gym. He's not pushing that thing on sinew. He's got all the muscle. When you're at your fraught nerve edge, when it's just, the sinew is like the thin, final threads, isn't it? It's the, your tendons, your sinew. It's the thin, when you're weak, when you're worn down. You've got to force that part to serve your turn long after they're gone. And that doesn't make sense either, does it? Because they're gone. Like, your heart's broken, your nerves are frayed, and you're down to your skin and bone, And you've got to force that to serve your turn, to do what you need it to do, to get you where you need it to go, long after they're gone, long after they're at their, when you're at your wit's end, And so hold on when there's nothing in you. So this, again, we're talking about the bottom, aren't we? We're talking about scraping the barrel. We're talking about having to hold the fucking barrel, sorry for swearing, having to hold the heavy barrel in order to try and scrape it, falling. But you've got the will, it's the difference between just slipping down the slope and digging in your fingernails. Fingernails is a good fingernails. Your heart and nerve and sinew, your nerves. To have the nerve to do it, to have the will. And the will says to them, hold on. It doesn't say to them, climb. It doesn't say to them, fly. It doesn't say we're going to just pat. It just says hold on, doesn't it? Hold on. Hold on. Because if you can get through that, then you've just gone through the hardest point. If you're holding on when you've got when your heart's broken and your nerves are fraught and you're down to your last, all your carbs are burned and it's just this sinew now, all the muscles are screaming out for rest, and there's nothing in you, there's no more to give, but you've got the will. If you're able to, and you are able to do that, because this is humanity, this is the struggle, this is what we're born of, this is how we're bred, this is how we're bred. We're all just animals, really. You grit your teeth. You've done it before. You've been through hard difficulties. Even mental health is a great example of this, because it's not a marathon, it's not a rope pull. There's no weights to struggle to lift, but it's happening to, it's that struggle, and you're capable of doing this just to hold on. Right, that's massive, yeah, that's massive. And you get through that, and then you can build from there, can't you? You can build from there. It spoiled your life, yeah. It spoiled your life. Well, it certainly didn't spoil my life to go through that trauma, that hardship. I mean, I'd say hardship. I live in abject luxury, I've done the away days, the camps, I've done the travel to Poland for training camp. I've done the sleeping in a tent for cub camp and all that. I've done a bit of that. I've done the being a student. I've done eating gravy and pasta and gravy. I've done the struggling at the coal face jobs. I've been a pot washer. I've been a roofer. I don't live that day to day. I live abject luxury now. Abject luxury. When I say that, I'll just have a normal house. I consider abject luxury to be heating and a fridge with food in it, and a nice warm bed, the internet. Abject luxury. So, I'm happy. And I'll tell you why I'm kind of happy is because I can remember that, forcing my heart and nerve and sinew to serve my turn long after they're gone. I can remember those days where it wasn't the difficulty of the job, it was the difficulty of getting up to go to the job. And I remember, like, at that time as well, actually, I remember this, that people around me weren't, they were encouraging, they weren't always the most supportive. I've lived in a dysfunctional, fractious situation quite a lot of my life. And the idea that you should just simply go to work, just do a normal thing, seemed like, well, that's just the simple basics. So if you're not even doing that, then what the chuff? It wasn't even like, there was no praise to be had for just doing the best. No one's going to come around and, like, if you're struggling with these things yourself in your life, I'm here to say to you, good job just for getting up and doing it. Good job for pushing through those dark days. Good job just for, putting up with it, or even walking out on it and looking for a new job. Because when I decided to leave the call centre, I did, wanted to step up. I wanted to step up. So, good on you for toughing it out, for holding on. That's a big, important point. So yeah, it didn't ruin my life. It showed me that I had the strength and resilience within to face the void and to sort of stand over it. Maybe even to wobble gently in the breeze and just to see what happened. Yeah. And I've come back from that, so I'm quite happy to push on forward through it. Yeah, didn't ruin my life. Didn't ruin my life. There's something about going through struggle with nothing to look forward to and doing it just to be able to say, watch me fight. This is how we fight. I'll show you now. Yeah, I'll show you how. Yeah, exactly. That's that's why we're here, isn't it? Again, that's how we're the people that stood up to the Nazis in the war, or fought for their independence in America. That's a weird one. I meant in terms of social, you know what I mean. I don't mean the wars of independence, because I don't know much about the American Civil War. But the people that fought for justice, let's just say that in general around the world, that and the people that just fight to survive, to maintain, it's all the same drive and fight, isn't it? And if you've got that, just for then when you want to draw on it in the future, I'll tell you something else magical about that, about the if, is looking at that. Did it ruin my life? No, it didn't ruin my life. Looking at that makes me realise that when things get tough in the future, like when things get really hard, and I'm saying this after the years we've just had, things have been really tough, and I was able to say, look, we're not at broken hearts yet, we are at frayed nerves, we're not down to the sinew, but I am going to hold on. I'm going to hold on. I was able to put enough of myself into the fight because I knew I had this. Yeah. So in fact, it was good for me. It's good for me. It saved my life. It was good for me. 44% of people who've experienced a mental health problem felt stereotypes about mental health apply to them. That's weird. It's not even half of them. And what's that saying to me? I'm going to just move on from that. What that's saying to me is that, because I kind of feel this, I've been talking about these things. I have suffered these things. You have suffered these things. We have suffered them. But we also talk about the ostracized members of society, the mad people, the people who have, like, whatever. That doesn't apply to me. Even though I've been to the lowest, I've been to the scraping the bottom of the well, I'm not one of these suicidal people. I don't have this. Maybe although I have been there and have considered these things and have been through some really serious scrapes. We'll say, let's just call them scrapes, because now's not the time to be talking about these things. Even though it's Mental Health Monday, we're not going to another time. Even though I've been there, and also to the extremes of disrupted thought and ill lucidity. Am I going to say that I'm one of those? It's easy to see why we don't want to have stereotypes applied to us, and would not feel that they apply to us, because they probably don't apply to us because they're stereotypes. 40% would be willing to speak to their manager. I want to see the manager. I demand to see the manager. Well, you work here. What's going on? Oh yeah, I was going to complain, but will it get me in trouble because I work here? I would be willing to speak to the manager or the HR department about their mental health. Only 40%. That's an only, isn't it? The majority, the 60%, aren't going to talk to the people at work about their mental health. Probably in fear. Okay, Karen, yeah. Karen's mental health support. Well, first of all, we're not going to get this dealt with by Mental Health Monday. We're going to have to go straight to the manager. I'm sorry about that. Well, there is no manager here. Oh, look at those kilobytes dropping. Oh, they're really dropping now. It's never an hour. Why do I even try yet? Well, if I aim for an hour and we do 2, that's okay. But if I said we're going to do a long one, it's 3 hours tonight, and I do 5, then that's really bad. It's not bad, it's just that when I come to edit it and wake up the next day, all these problems start occurring. Talking of problems, look, that kilobyte outage has just kicked in, hasn't it, as it's approaching. I'm sure it's doing it at your end, because at my end it's up and down like a fiddler's wrist. Up and down like a fiddler's elbow, I should say. And that's not even rude, is it? Because they play the violin and they move their elbow up and down. Yeah, the Twitch laws have spoken. The internet has spoken. It's a bit laggy at your end. Okay, yeah. But at my end, I can't edit the final version from static freeze frames. I don't like doing it anymore. It makes me look like a chuffer. And the final, it gives us something to bounce off into next week, because we have done 2 full hours and the dog does need a walk. Till next week, but don't worry, because all week you've got Ganji Kid, me, chuffing about on stream. We're playing Green Hell at the moment. It's been really difficult. I have also been thinking really seriously about doing a special for Halloween, or at least Halloween month, which is this October month coming up. And what I was thinking, I don't know what freeze frames we're getting now. See, that's the other thing. I'm going to look like a right silly chuffer with all freeze frames going on. Oh, just as I said it, we went up to 6,000 kilobytes and then down to 1,000 immediately after. That's the ups and downs. Is it? So, the game shows. I bought game things on the Super Nintendo on sale. Trivial Pursuit was on sale. I thought we could play them together. I thought you, the chat, could be one person in Trivial Pursuit and I could be the other one, and we could play the Trivial Pursuit, and then you could answer the questions. You can use Google if you want. I'm not going to use Google. I'm going to do it off the top of my head, and we can see how we go, can't we? Game show month, game show month, but not with these kilobytes. So all sorts of things to look forward to. I thought we might do game show. I don't know if because it's really close game show, and I don't think I'm going to finish Green Hell before October, but I'm going to try and work this in. It might be a YouTube stream, because we're going to try and stream on YouTube at some point and not bother to edit it. Who knows? Things in the pipeline, even things. What do you call that? Podcast. All sorts of things. So until tomorrow, when we reconvene, just at a random time with me playing Green Hell, just because I'm loving it and I can't wait to get back to doing it, and I'm not allowed to do it off stream. It's all got to be on stream, hasn't it? We've got to share in the joy. So until then, you've got chuffing Ganji Cuts and chuffing Ganji Kid and chuffing this and chuffing that, and you be good, my little puckos. You be good, because if you can't be good, then people are going to stigmatise you, and they'd be wrong too, because you're not naughty, you're good.